So starting with our second session, ladies and gentlemen, requesting you to please be with us. Over to you, sir. Thank you so much. Absolute pleasure to have all of you here with us for our second session. Looking forward. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, GFF organizing team. And thank you to my fellow panelists, and it's an amazing turnout today. Maybe we start with a very quick round of intros, if you don't mind, one or two sentences about what you do, and especially in context of the conversation today. And then, we'll dive right into the contents. Should we start with you, Bhargavi?
Thanks, Madhur. Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to meet all of you here. And of course, it's great to be on a panel with such esteemed professionals. My name is Bhargavi. I lead ABCD, which is Aditya Birla Capital Digital, but it's also an app by the same eponymous name. And we are part of Aditya Birla Capital. And in context to today's conversation, I think when we set out to build ABCD about 3 years ago, we were bringing all of our 5 or 6 different group businesses in financial services, which have legacy going back 30 years, onto the same buy platform and the same servicing platform. And they're all in different industries across insurance, mutual funds, of course, regulated by RBI as well, with secured and unsecured lending. So bringing all of them on that platform, I think was quite an interesting and educative journey, and I think that will help us in today's conversation as well.
Hi everyone, so my name is Khalifa. I'm from a company called Ericsson, and I see, but when I meet people here, they tell me, Ericsson, why you're here? So Ericsson actually, it's a 150 years old company very active in telecom space. Actually, we are one of the biggest in the telecom space. Ericsson is also working a lot with telco providers to digitally transform their financial ecosystems, and many of them has been in this journey for the last 20 years and so. So we have a massive platform, and we have a large ecosystems of customers in Middle East Africa mainly, and we have now a platform managing almost 120 million active wallet per month, with $500 billion worth of transactions per year. So we're here because we've been digitally transforming our customers for the last maybe 50 years, and we know what it means exactly to break the silos and to move stepwise, and I think we are very relevant to this discussion. So looking forward to join my fellow panelists. Very good profiles, and I think you know most of them. So hopefully we will add a lot of value and a lot of thought to today's discussion. So thank you. Honored also to be in Bombay for the first time. So.
Welcome, Khalifa.
Good morning. My name is Vishal, and I have the honor of leading Pismo. We are a cloud-native core banking and payments platform, which was acquired by Visa about 2 years ago. Our platform is essentially a cloud-native 4th-gen platform used by banks like Citi, ABN AMRO, essentially, and is starting to disrupt the industry in terms of replacing legacy cores. We are currently at about 170 million accounts on the platform and growing rapidly in many countries in the world. As always, it's an honor to be here with my esteemed fellow panelists. Hopefully we'll sort of add some value and ensure you don't have to reach for your coffee every time.
Hi, I'm Raja Debnath. I lead the Veefin group. Veefin group is in the business of providing enterprise software across the working capital domain and the digital lending domain to banks across Asia, Middle East, and Africa. The guys here gave some big numbers, so I think I should give some big numbers. So last year, our transactions were around $35 billion of annual run rate across all the banks who are using our platform on the supply chain and the digital lending side. So over the last few years, I worked a lot with banks, and I've seen the challenges firsthand in terms of them having to change their legacy systems. So the lens that I would use today is to see how we can move from a product-centric and the fragmented ecosystem to more of a connected ecosystem, so to speak. So I look forward to hearing from my fellow panelists what their views are from different parts in the world. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. My name is Madhur Singhal. I'm a managing partner and CEO with Praxis. We are India's one of the largest homegrown consulting firms. I used to be a partner at Bain, leading the Tiger Global Retainer. I've personally done a lot of fintech investment work, diligence work, value creation work globally. But anyway, today is not about me. We have much better people on the panel to hear from. And so we go right into the discussion. Vishal, perhaps start with you. You're modernizing a lot of financial systems. Talk to us a little bit about the journey, what you've learned, what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced, as you enter this realm.
No, I think, thanks for the great question. We've actually grown up in a very strange world, right? I grew up in a world where, modernizing a core platform used to cost the equivalent of a small aircraft carrier, sometimes, almost the equivalent of like an entire squadron of fighter jets, right? More often than not, it would take away a few hundred people's jobs because it would never really go right. Yeah. And I think that was the problem that we were created to solve, right? So how do you essentially get core platform modernization right? How do you sort of get it done at maybe the cost of just one fighter plane? And how do you ensure that it sort of actually lands on time, right? And that's how we sort of grew up. It's been an insanely fun journey, but obviously it hasn't been easy, right? For a number of reasons. One is, I think we're at the cutting edge of the technology, and that age is just beginning, right? People are still not sort of familiar with how to evaluate us, right? People are used to legacy platforms where you can sort of look at a screen, you can configure an interest rate. People don't yet know in a lot of detail, especially at large banks, how to sort of work with APIs, right? So it's a very different way of thinking. It's almost as if you were sort of an old car user and you're suddenly sort of faced with, a Tesla and you're wondering how to sort of deal with it. So I think that's number one. Second, I think, public cloud, I think is an irrevocable phenomenon, but it sort of still makes a lot of people uncomfortable, right? People sort of tend to think that if I don't have my infrastructure on-prem in front of me, I can't control it, even though sort of, that's a little bit of an illusion, right? And, that's also been a journey of education, right? And I think third is this whole concept of orchestration, right? You were used to having a product right there completely in front of your eyes from start to finish. The idea of sort of taking one feature from, a player in sort of the US, one feature from a player in the UK, one feature from a player in India, and sort of building a modern, deposit account or a modern card product is still a very, very new concept, right? That whole concept of orchestration, the whole concept of digital ecosystem, we keep saying it, right? But it's still a very new thing to put in practice. And we've been living that journey for, 4 or 5 years. It's been amazing to watch it. I have the honor of a front row seat there. But I sort of now realize how hard that journey is, right? Even though it looks very easy on paper. So, yeah.
No, interesting. And Bhargavi, over to you on the same thing. You've been a customer also and an enabler within the Aditya Birla group. Talk to us a bit more about what was the biggest challenge, as you started modernizing both at the front end as well as at the back end.
Firstly, all of our companies were in very different stages of their own tech architecture. They're regulated by, all the regulators of India are sort of with ABCL. So we've got RBI, NPCI, of course, with us in the payment space. We've got IRDA, SEBI, and also the NHB. So just make sure that we've got 100% coverage there. Yeah. So we have all of these various rules. Our companies were born at different times. So some are 30 years old. The youngest one, we are about 2 or 3 years old. The youngest one apart from us is about 5, 6 years old. So whole spread and diverse industries and regulators. So first and foremost was us to, as with all transformation projects, it starts with having the business strategy in place. So we know what we want to do, and we have the broad principles that we want it to be interoperable, we want it to be API-led, those sort of things. And then working back with each of our units. So we have done a fair bit of, can I use the word customization, when we have worked back with each of our units. Having said which, at the front end, hopefully, so there are some redirects in what's supposed to be a fully native fintech app, but it works. There are SDKs there, and there are very, very cutting edge APIs as well. And, and so we have worked to accommodate all of us. We have been the balancing factor to bring it all to a common stead. Having said which, because we had the strategic vision set by our CEO, and there was alignment, right? So in all of these, if you don't have the vision or the alignment, coming from the very top down, because these projects take sponsorship. And there are, as he said, even today, Vishal, there are glitches, right, when we are going live. And we had to go live in 12 months with all our 6 companies. And there was no choice of let's not put this company on board. All 6 had to be live on the day we, sort of launched. So made sure we had strategic alignment, execution, and then sort of working with whatever tech stack each of them had. And we brought in the modernization. We brought in the modern data lake. We brought in our data clouds. We are natively on the cloud. Our units are very... So I think in all things digital transformation, we just need to make sure that the strategy in place, the principles are in place, and then we are sort of a little flexible with how we evolve and adapt to the various engineering challenges that emerge along the way.
Yeah, in fact, coming to you, Raja, do you mind talking about what does it mean in this? What are the biggest challenges in the tech stack? Is it data? Is it abstraction? Is it APIs? Is it containerization, model right? Talk to us about a different aspect of the technological challenge in making this happen.
If I take a separate track at this, in all these transformation challenges that I've seen, it is not actually the tech. It is never the tech. It is who owns that project, okay? Because everybody wants, so business wants something, operations want something, and tech wants something, and each one of them is right in their own way. However, because all three are right, there's no outcome which happens. Of all the projects that I have seen, the ones which actually work is when, picking up from what my panelists said, there has to be a vision right from the top. So when somebody drives it right from the top and it says, who's going to monetize this technology transformation, for example? The team which is to monetize it is usually the business. So business has to own it, tech will enable it, and operations will bring in the safeguards. When this happens, that is the only time a project actually moves from a tech project to a business project. And only those projects remain successful. Recently, I was working with one of the large private sector banks. They have been at it for the last 2.5 years, trying to agree on a change that they need to make on a system which they're struggling with on a day-in, day-out basis, because the three teams just don't seem to agree on it. It's only a couple of weeks back when a diktat came from the top, and the business team was made the owner of it, saying that this is the 5-member team, business, you are the owner, the others will sign off on this, but it is your neck on the block, and you have the final say. It's only then that something which was stuck for 2.5 years is now slated to move in the next 1 month, 1.5 months. Let's see. And
Raja, it's very interesting you touched upon this sort of triumvirate of functions and IT, and maybe finance if that's an important stakeholder as well. Maybe, go to you, Khalifa. How do you balance customer experience with these customer experience, which arguably is the business need, hopefully, and security compliance on one end, and then, what the technology wants, and, very rightly it was touched upon, this sort of, worry about public cloud, worry about will my data stay with me, worry about am I, unknowingly transferring PII of my customers to a third-party systems for processing. Tell us a little bit about how do you break this impasse and what your experience has been.
Yeah, so I think it's very relevant questions because at the end of the day, everything we do and every transformation that is planned or to be planned is at the service of the customer. So what we do usually in our world is that's where it starts. Every transformation starts with how the customers, what are the persona, what is the customer journey, and what is the before and after, and is there something that it's a continuity or it's probably a change completely. So we start, that's the first starting point, and then it will cascade down to the different layers in the cloud, in the prem, whatever technology that has to support this journey that we have. So that's ultimately something that we don't want to the only permitted things there is to improve it. And then after that, it's cascade down to the different layer, as I said, infrastructures, technology, data, and so on. And then if we talk about risk management in this, in our world, and as I said, I'm coming from a telco industry where I think we are managing now roughly the life means this for probably 7 billion people on Earth. Almost any one of them is passing through some of our technology. And yet we manage to sleep. And how we do that? We do that because the risk is something that we manage from the design, the first line of code that we write on the product, up to the things that goes live in the network. And all that process is something that we matured over, as I said, 150 years of experience. So one of the things that we do, for example, is the testing. We don't leave anything for chance. So when we test from the, as I said, from the smallest functionality up to the end-to-end journey. And usually what we do in there is, because we're talking about, can I give you a statistics, for example? Some of our technologies, and one of them is the Fintech platform that we have, we're running in the range of 250,000 tests a day sometimes. So that's completely automated. That's completely closed-looped with the R&D, for example. And that's also equipped with all the circuit breaker in the systems to allow to stop and then to go back and test and so on. So all this is something that we are trying to do to manage the risk of getting the customer experience to the level it should be.
Yeah.
So once it goes live, then it's a different life cycle. So it's a 24/7 monitoring. It's an operating system that runs on top of the technologies, and we call that in our world the no-assess systems, but it's actually something that it's all the NOCs and the SOCs and so on that we are trying to monitor and master also the art of it. And now AI is playing a major role into that, and to detecting the patterns, to detecting how things are changing, to make sure that alerts and alarms are generated in a very smooth way, to manage the risk behind the customer experience, or manage the risk behind something else that is not customer experience, but it can destroy it later, which security, breaches, and
Correct.
so on and so forth.
No, it's very interesting, Bhargavi, because you've sort of implemented a modernized infrastructure across multiple parts of financial services, as insurance and wealth management and whatnot. How do you think about interoperability, and are you able to get to the holy grail of single view of customer, or is that still a dream and we are right now still figuring out how to make systems talk to each other and get the basics done?
That's a good question. I almost want to say yes, we've done the holy grail, but a lot of my team is here, and when I go back on, I need to ask them to do more things. So no, I think firstly, one thing from transformation, right? As with all good things, and in a transformation that goes well, it's a virtuous cycle. It's important to note that. So it's not that the rest of our org is stat, or that the rest of any client setup is static. As one part of it updates, improves, catalyzes change and modernization, I think the other parts of the org follow, because it's both a mindset as well as to make that application happen, the infra updates, right? So it's I think a virtuous cycle, and we need to make sure we put the organization on it. I think with regard to the golden ID, or that sort of single unified customer view, I think reasonable progress has been made, because this is something we started along with imagining the application. We also thought of or wanted the single view of the customer from day one or from day zero of the project. It started subject to, I think, consent and the privacy architecture and the consent framework that's coming, as well as the various regulatory landscapes that we navigate. I think we have hit a reasonable, good level of success. And I think we need to iron out a few things, guys, and need to make sure that we sort of are there 100%. I think we're well on our way. So actually, yes. Yep. But we've invested 3 years of thought, process, structure, regulation, legal, compliance. Everybody works to make this happen. Business teams, service teams. It's not a consent project, or it's not a customer project housed somewhere in operations or customer service. It's an org-wide project.
Humans are a bigger problem than the technology itself. I think, so with that, Vishal, maybe talk about your experience, because you are trying to create partnerships between a very modern, tech-first, mindset and architecture with, conventional technologists and technologies. How does that work? And have you seen an incredible success somewhere, and what did they do right?
Great question. Yes, I think this has always been a challenge, right? You're sort of asking someone who has grown up with legacy technology to sort of evaluate modern technology, right? And then worse, work with
Adopt it. Yeah.
And then worse, work with it quickly,
Yeah.
right? So, the challenges are sort of manifold.
Yeah.
The processes are sort of not set up for it, right? So when a bank basically selects a platform, right, they're still used to, 3,000 line RFPs, right, where you sort of tick off features one by one by one. And again, that's not the way to evaluate a modern technology, right? The way to evaluate a modern technology is to sort of download a sandbox, right, call an API, push an API, try and connect it with something else, right, play around with it. And that's basically when you learn, right? That mode of working is starting to catch on, right? And again, just speaking from experience, we are now live in 16 countries, right? Which is like, if you had told me, about 6 years ago that you'll be live in 16 countries, I would have said you were smoking something very strong, right? But it has happened, right? And some of those successes have been remarkable, right? For a Fortune 50 bank, for example, and when I say Fortune 50, right, you're basically talking about like a top 10 bank. We went live in the US on time in 1 year, right? Something like that was unthinkable a few years ago, right? And I remember when we won this contract, I was worried that, like we were just a small startup, right? And I was worried that we would be steamrollered, right? By the bank saying, make this change, make this change, make this change, make this change, until our platform was completely unrecognizable. What happened was completely remarkable. And I think I credit, their attitude to essentially where we are today. They said, we've learned from our mistake, right? The reason we are in this position is because we kept asking for change indiscriminately. We will not do it this time. We will keep the platform pure. We will depend on you to tell us when not to implement a change, right? We will fight with you. We will argue. But if you give us a cogent argument, we will not fight back. They kept true to their word, and they went live in 11 months in the US, right? It's something that was like unheard of. And so, my friend Raja is quite right when he says, this is a question of vision that is non-negotiable. It is a question of direction from the top, non-negotiable. The way I see it, my job is assuming all of that is correct. Technology is not the constraint, right? That is my job, right? So all of this, everything that Bhargavi has said in the vision, Raja said in terms of like, people agreeing, if all of that comes true, our job as modern tech platforms is to ensure that no one can then say, okay, we were all agreed, but the tech could not do it.
Absolutely.
We are not the constraint anymore.
Correct. No, in fact, we do some bit of AI services execution. We modernized trade finance of a leading bank in India. With that, I'll get to Khalifa. The biggest challenge we faced was actually, I think, what some of you have spoken, but I want to put that in an international context. I think the whole point around data privacy, parting with systems, somebody using my data and the fintech player becoming better in its business and therefore more powerful relatively because, 10 players like me are empowering them with insights from my customer data. Do you come across that? If yes, and, a corollary question to that, this whole global partnerships, is that something we will see, coming back and turning around, much like some bits of globalization today? Or is this here to stay and will fintech truly be global when it comes to infrastructure?
Let me maybe reflect a bit on my origins again, which is telco space. I think this is one of probably, don't judge it with customer experience, but judge it that wherever you open your phone, you can make a call. So that's the level of interoperability that what we see the financial sectors is going to be in the future, hopefully. It's one of the most regulated sectors in the world, and every country is very protective to its regulation. But what we think is happening now at least what we're seeing is happening now is that the revolutions that is coming to it step at a time. I think, for example, what India built in the UPI is something phenomenal, and I hope every country will be following this concept of as long as you have silos, it will go nowhere. So there should be somebody, which is usually a regulator or which is an authority that will come and impose something, and then everybody will align. Once a big country like India set the scene and show and proven the success, we think probably many will follow the same lead. Again, if I talk in a broader context, and I fully agree with my fellow panelists, that the challenge that we see, it's never technology challenge. Usually technology, probably that was 10, 15 years back when people were not sure what cloud native is, what AI is. I think now all that has been sorted out. It's even open sourced. Yeah. So now it's that overlay on top of the technology, which is the existential crisis between a legacy and a modern. And as Vishal mentioned it, like sometimes it's a people resistance that can completely ruin a multi-billion-dollar transformation projects and programs.
No, I was joking with one of the CIOs of our clients. I was telling them, we have come here to break your silos and erect our containers. So, it was a very cheeky, geeky joke. But with that, maybe Raja, talk to us a bit more about, traditional tech and new tech jiving, and where has it failed and what can be learned from it? Or is this always successful and it's really the human mindset that's the only challenge?
As I said earlier, that this is not a tech game. So we are all saying the same thing. Because as tech guys, when tech works well, you should not be talking about tech. Okay? The best form of tech is when you are not talking of tech, you're talking of business. And tech is supposed to be invisible in that sense. So wherever we see tech not working, it is because there are issues with, for example, what Vishal said, that you do too much of customization. You buy a product, and then you customize it, the hell out of it. It no longer remains the product which you had bought.
Sure.
It's something custom built specifically for you, and that's the difference. Most banks, I think 90% bankers, do not understand the difference between buying a product and having a product. That's where the rubber hits the road, because nobody wants to change. Everybody wants the product to replicate exactly what they are doing. Even the screen, the color, the button, you want everything to be same. And most people who are not tech believe this is just one screen, or this is just one button. Just add this here, just add that there, just add one column to this.
It's not PowerPoint.
Yeah. So that's the way people who don't understand tech think.
Yeah.
And I think the tech teams, and I blame this on the tech teams internally in the organizations, they have abdicated their responsibility of educating their internal business stakeholders to understand what it means. Because they are the only ones who understand tech at the bank end. If they don't educate their own business stakeholders in terms of what they're asking for, we will all, if we had our way, if the banks had their way, we would have changed WhatsApp for each of the banks, we would have changed Facebook for each of the banks, and have personalized single user interface for Facebook.
So let me layer on one more question. I'll come to Bhargavi, you, because I deal with a lot of business owners and who all philosophically understand that technology is needed, but technology investments come much ahead of the benefits that they will realize. And that too, the first part of technology is typically getting the plumbing right. And only after that does incremental business benefit will hopefully flow to the top line and then hopefully to the bottom line. Any thoughts on that, and how do you manage that? And Bhargavi, I'm very keen to hear your views, because you would have fought enough internal battles, leave alone the 6 business CEOs that you deal with.
I think this comes from, sorry.
Yeah, maybe Vishal starts. Yeah.
So
Sorry.
the reason why Veefin was started. So I used to be at IFC World Bank advising banks across Asia on the digital transformations. And this was always the challenge, that you do the advisory, you would explain to them what needed to be done, business was all for it. Then there comes the question of technology, because you can't do large-scale business without a good tech platform. That's when you have to go to the board and try to get approvals. Usually would not happen. So one of the things that we did, and I saw 5 projects of mine which were stillborn, approved by business, not getting approved at the board level, because tech has to be brought in upfront, and there's no business plan, and somebody has to put his or her neck on the block there and say, give me the money, I will get it done, but nobody had that. So I quit, and I said, we will build the tech, and we will see to it that we go into a software as a service model. So when we got in and we started doing supply chain financing, for example, on a software as a service model, we were the first players globally to do it. Because something which is worth hundreds of thousands and $1 million plus, we were saying, anybody can now take that solution and use it, and hopefully if you do business, we will make money. So our philosophy was that we will own every single player in the market in terms of lender. The market is a normal distribution. We will be a normal distribution. 20% of our customers will do well. 30% will fail abysmally. There'll be a 40% middle out there where it will just break even. And we were fine with that. And it goes back to the way we architected our product from day one. We said, we will be a product company and not a custom built company. So we have some of our clients where we have had it's our fault actually, that we were not able to get the clients to get convinced on on implementing a product. So we have some implementations which have been going on for 2 years. And there are implementations which have finished in a few months. Started after those implementations. And every time an implementation goes off track is always because the banker out there wants to change every damn thing. Everything. So it's a custom project which we are building for them. Mistakes we have made in the past and we are learning.
Bhargavi.
So yeah, I think you're right, Raja. See, past every bank, every large organization has past failures, right, on technology implementations and long time frames, cost overruns. Finally, by the time the project came live, there was a new technology. I think all of that has happened and there's organizational memory of it. So what's important to remember is that we need to have a business ROI on the discussion table and the business sponsor needs to own it. And if there's a technology colleague in the room who thinks something is paramount or a digital colleague, they need to convince their business colleague to come on board, right? Because these are conversations where we carry the responsibility together. So you need to have a business ROI. The ROI can be quantitative and also interestingly can be qualitative. It's about our ability and conviction to express the qualitative nature of it and bring stakeholders on board, whether it is the board or a varied array of cross-functional stakeholders. And once you have it, I think it's essential to start with the peripherals. Everybody likes a success. Everybody likes 90-day implementation cycles. And you can launch something in 90 days. It may just not be core banking, right? But give them the peripheral stuff. Get, I think, goodwill on board. Get successes, get cake cuttings and samosa parties on board. So that there are more people who are part of your success who have benefited from maybe just changing the pricing module, which if attached to the core, kills innovation, kills product, kills customer, kills everything, right? It's hard if you've attached your product module and pricing module to the core. So maybe detach that. Start off, it's not too risky to implement, can be done, not 90 days, but 6 months. Right, that can be done. So once you have a series of small wins, and you're able to deliver to the schedule you said that you would to the board, because everyone's watching and judging, and rightfully so, then I think the engine then you have momentum. And I think all projects should be hard defined in a series of 11 months or so, because anything that crosses a month, 11 months, and you've sort of lost a financial year there, people are starting to wonder about it. So even if it is going to be a phased implementation, I think you must have those milestones that are mandatory checkpoints and you bring people on board. And I think a lot of people, a lot of my panelists made very good points and I don't know if everybody quite caught it, right? You don't buy licensed software where you can do open source, right? You don't build anything. You buy it if you can and if it's reasonably cost effective. And there are so many providers. Unless there is competitive differentiation to that proposition that you're building that only you can build. So once these principles are in place, I think most organizations can navigate their transformation. And I also think today all tech folks want to show business ROI. Nobody is a purist of, I live only tech, breathe only tech, right? They understand business compulsions and I think they want to see their tool and effort make a business change. I think they care about it. I think they're on board.
Khalifa, my sort of closing question to maybe all of you, but we'll start with you. So what's the next big thing in financial infrastructure? Have we peaked? Or is more coming? Are there waves that have not hit us yet?
So, Madhur, I need to ask your permission first for a call for action because he confiscated my passport and he said I need to say N12, booth for Ericsson. So if you want to learn more.
Just shut down his phone. You didn't do that?
So I think if we talk about this panel, which is a silo breaker, and no offense, of course, but I think finance is one of the most siloed and fragmented industry. If we take it from the macro level, which is country, every country has its own stuff. If we take it down to a country, every bank, every financial institution is a walled garden. If you go inside the financial institution, every department, sometimes it's a garden, and so on. So I think what's coming next, as you mentioned, is probably the destruction of those silos, as your panel exactly is about. But why? Because the need now is embedded finance.
Yeah.
What is embedded finance? Embedded finance is like everything is a financial device. A fridge is a financial device in maybe a couple of years from time. A bottle can probably have a sensor to order water, I don't know. But embedded finance is one of the biggest drivers that will push the silo to be broken in hopefully very near future. And of course, with that, all the technologies, which I think we all of us say that technology, don't think of it as a problem, think of it as an enabler, but don't dream too much, because technology is not to color code or something. Technology is to put the foundation layer for you to go to break the silos, basically. So a lot happening. I think embedded finance is my pick on this, but I will not talk about AI and all this. That will come probably, but that's my first bet on the next big thing that will happen in finance world.
Vishal, your closing thoughts. What's coming next? You can contextualize to what you do.
No, again, and I think I have common context with a lot of my fellow panelists. I think my one-line summary of it is, I think we're barely scratching the surface, right? And you know, instead of giving you a whole lot of cliches about, you know, I'll give you a live example, right? So everyone here who sort of, you know, dealt with a large system implementation knows you sometimes have to migrate an old product from a legacy platform to a modern platform. Let's say a deposit or a credit card, right? You know, that world used to be very manual earlier, right? You had to sort of take 1,000 fields of deposits. You had to sort of map it manually to your new product, right? Then you had to sort of do rehearsals a few times to see if everything, you know, went through correctly. You know, we sort of tried out, we let loose an LLM, right, on, you know, on a deposit product, right? And we basically just single 3-line prompt. We said sort of map all the fields from there to here, right? And, you know, I still remember goosebumps on my skin, right? We timed it at 7 minutes. It was an activity which took 4.5 months manually. We timed it at 7 minutes, right, with 100% accuracy. And, you know, at that point in time, we realized that the world that we live in has changed forever, right? We're starting to see this. I mean, you know, one of our clients, you know, recently publicly acknowledged this. When we signed our first contract, right, you know, in this European country, we didn't have an office, we didn't have a contract. They essentially said, look, we don't know you. We're going to sign a 6-month contract. If we don't see any progress, you know, we reserve the right to sort of cancel the contract. We went live in 4 months, right? We didn't show progress, we went live in 4 months. And it is because of these technological leaps, right? You know, we're living in a completely different world. I have a ringside view to this, and even I can't imagine what's going to happen next.
Amazing.
Right? We're just sort of getting started.
Raja, any closing thoughts from your side?
I won't talk about AI. AI will scare the shit out of everybody. So I'll talk of something which is more in the present. So the next big thing that we see from a silo perspective is that banks and lenders will not need to rip apart their entire legacy infrastructure. So banks will work with what they have, but they'll pick and choose, like Lego blocks, small pieces of code which will then go and sit on them. So like when we have built our Veefin 4.0, the new architecture, our entire stack is on a microservices architecture. So it means that if a bank says that I have a great system in place, but my fees and charges module is not that great, they can just pick up the fees and charges module. They may say, I have a great trade finance system, but I'm struggling with my guarantees product. They just pick up the guarantees. If somebody says, I have a collection system, I just don't have a very good allocation system, they just pick up that allocation engine. That's what I see is going to happen more and more.
Yeah, any closing thoughts from your side?
Yes. I think with all of the technologies that we have today, we imagine a certain future. But if you look at elevators, right, and Bombay has some old buildings, especially if you go down South Bombay side, where you have elevators which are grill and 5-story, 4-story buildings. Because back in the day, when they thought elevators, we had 3 stories because that's how much you could climb up. And the elevators also, the technology was what it was. So you trusted it to do that much. And your imagination was also 4 stories and 5 stories. Today, elevator is not the reason for building height, right? You can have 100 stories. So I think as technology emerges, possibilities emerge, which are not very visible on day one. And we often underestimate, or overestimate what it will do in the next 3 months. Call center will go away, and this will happen, and that will happen. Product managers will become AI agents, or AI agents will become product managers. And we often underestimate what it will do in the medium term. So I don't have any guesses, so I'm wisely not guessing what could happen in the future. But I do know that in BFSI, you don't, what is it called? Break it fast and all of that. No, you don't do that. Not wise at all. When technology came, cloud happened. The RBI regulation on data localization followed in 17-18. So sometimes, it's iterative. You don't know what comes first, and you need to be flexible and agile to respond. UPI happened, and suddenly, interoperability is very easy today. So I think keeping a balanced sense of purpose in BFSI around regulation, customer experience, of course, and business ROIs, and imagination and creativity, I think will enable us and build for purpose. I don't want to over-engineer the future, because for the future, I'm not building 100-year something. I'm building a 100-year org, but not a 100-year technology stack, because I don't know what it's going to look like tomorrow, but it's got to be resilient enough for today plus, some stress testing. I think that's a good and sound approach that I'd go with.
Yeah, no, of course, unlike the South Bombay buildings, financial services businesses won't have any heritage value, so to speak. We have no chance, no option but to innovate. With that, we come to the close of this panel. I really enjoyed the interaction. Excellent, very coherent thoughts. I think we spoke about, business sponsorship. We spoke about business ROI, and technology not being a roadblock to all of this. We spoke about some of the best practices on, not many frequent changes, get to the better, modularization, the Lego block model that we spoke about. We spoke about embedded finance. Every business is going to be a financial services business. A very important takeaway, I think, from the point that was made. And I think, we didn't touch too much on AI, but, I think it is here and now, and it is breaking down, it's disrupting the disruption and the disruptors. So I think on that note, thank you so much for your time. And thank you for the audience being patient. I'm sorry we've not been able to take questions because we're out of time, but I hope you benefited from this conversation. Thank you so much.
What an amazing session. We were glued throughout. Thank you so much. Heartfelt thanks to our moderator, to our speaker, and of course to our audience. I request you to please be here with us as we are about to begin our third session. Thank you so much. Let's take a group picture.